In a distant corner of the galaxy far beyond the reach of most civilizations, there existed a species known as the Valens. They were tall, with shimmering skin that seemed to reflect light in strange patterns, and their eyes glowed faintly, giving them an otherworldly appearance. For centuries, the Valens had ruled over dozens of star systems, their empire expanding steadily as they conquered weaker neighbors or absorbed them into their fold. Their technology was unmatched, and their military was feared across the stars. To many, the Valens were gods among mortals, untouchable and invincible. But on one quiet day, something unusual happened. Deep within their command center, enormous structure floating in the void of space, a faint signal appeared on the monitors. It was weak, almost imperceptible, like a whisper lost in the vastness of the cosmos. The technicians frowned as they tried to make sense of it. At first, they thought it might be interference from a nearby nebula, or perhaps a malfunction in their equipment. But when the signal repeated itself several minutes later, they realized it was real. Captain Lila Monroe, a seasoned officer who commanded one of the Valen fleets, stood at the center of the room, her glowing eyes narrowing as she studied the data. She was a respected leader, known for her calm demeanor and sharp instincts. Her voice carried authority as she spoke. "Bring it up again," she ordered. "Let's see if we can clean it up." The technicians worked quickly, adjusting frequencies and filtering out background noise. Slowly, the message began to take shape. It was fragmented, broken into short bursts, but enough words came through to form a coherent plea. "This is Earth Vessel Horizon," the voice said, distorted but clear enough to understand. "We are under attack. Coordinates attached. Please assist." The room fell silent. No one moved. The word Earth meant nothing to them. It wasn't a name they recognized, nor did it correspond to any known civilization in their databases. The idea that someone or something had reached out to them from such a remote sector of space was baffling. The Valens prided themselves on their knowledge of the galaxy, yet this signal suggested there was a world they had never encountered. Lila turned to her second-in-command, a younger officer named Kale, who stood nearby. "What do you think?" she asked. Kale hesitated before answering. "It could be a trap," he said cautiously. "Or it could be genuine. Either way, we need to investigate." Lila nodded. "Agreed. Prepare a patrol ship. We'll head to those coordinates and see what's going on." Within hours, a small fleet of Valen vessels set course for the location mentioned in the distress call. As they traveled, Leela couldn't shake the feeling that this mission was different from anything she'd done before. There was an air of mystery surrounding the message, a sense that it marked the beginning of something significant. She didn't know whether to feel excited or uneasy. When they arrived at the coordinates, the scene before them was chaotic. A single spacecraft, the Horizon, was engaged in battle with a group of smaller ships. The attackers were clearly pirates, scavengers who preyed on weaker vessels in uncharted regions of space. Their weapons fired relentlessly, battering the Horizon's shields. Smoke poured from its hull, and it was clear the human ship wouldn't last much longer. Just as the Valens prepared to intervene, another fleet appeared on the edge of the battlefield. These ships were unlike anything Lila had ever seen. Sleek and angular, they gleamed with a metallic shine that seemed almost alive. Their engines pulsed with energy, casting eerie shadows across the void. Each vessel bore the same emblem, a stylized image of a planet surrounded by stars. Without hesitation, the new arrivals launched an assault on the pirates. Their weapons were devastatingly effective, tearing through the enemy ships with ease. Within moments, the pirates were obliterated, their wreckage drifting silently into the darkness. The Horizon, now safe, powered down its weapons and sent out a brief message of thanks. Lila watched in stunned silence. Whoever these newcomers were, they possessed technology far beyond anything the Valens had encountered. Their movements were precise, their coordination flawless. It was as if they had anticipated every move the pirates would make. As the mysterious fleet turned to leave, Leela made a decision. "Hail them," she ordered. Her communications officer complied, sending out a signal on all frequencies. After a tense moment, a reply came through. The voice was calm and measured, speaking in a language none of the Valens understood. However, their translation systems quickly deciphered it. "This is Commander Jack Hayes of the Earth Galactic Defense Fleet. We appreciate your presence here today, but we had the situation under control." Lila stepped forward, addressing the screen directly. "I am Captain Lila Monroe of the Valen Empire. Your arrival was unexpected." "Who are you? And where did you come from?" There was a pause before Hayes responded. "We are humans from a planet called Earth. This is our first contact with your kind. Rest assured, we mean no harm, but we will protect our people." With that, the transmission ended, and the Earth fleet disappeared into hyperspace, leaving the Valens staring after them in disbelief. Back aboard the Valen flagship, Lila gathered her senior officers to discuss what they had witnessed. The mood in the room was tense. Some argued that the humans posed a threat, while others believed they might be valuable allies. One thing was certain: Earth's sudden emergence onto the galactic stage could not be ignored. Word of the encounter spread rapidly throughout the Valen Empire. Leaders convened emergency meetings to assess the situation. Reports poured in from spies embedded in neighboring systems, all describing similar stories. Humanity had revealed itself in spectacular fashion, and its fleet was unlike anything anyone had ever seen. For Lila, the experience left her with more questions than answers. What kind of civilization could develop such advanced technology without being detected? And why had they chosen this moment to reveal themselves? Whatever the truth was, one thing was undeniable: Earth was a force to be reckoned with. As the Valens debated their next steps, humanity continued to expand its influence. The SOS call had been answered, not just by the Valens, but by countless other species scattered across the stars. News of Earth's power spread like wildfire, striking fear into the hearts of those who once considered themselves dominant. Everyone wanted to know more about these newcomers, but few dared to approach them directly, and so the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what Earth would do next. Commander Jack Hayes stood in the observation deck of Liberty Prime, Earth's orbital station that served as the nerve center for humanity's newly revealed galactic defense fleet. The room was dimly lit, with the only illumination coming from the stars outside the massive windows. He stared out at the endless expanse of space, his mind replaying the events of the past few days. It had all started with a simple SOS call from the horizon, a routine exploration vessel that had been ambushed by pirates in an uncharted region of space. What followed was anything but routine. The distress signal had triggered an automatic response from Earth's fleet, which had been secretly developed over decades in hidden shipyards scattered throughout the solar system. Until now, its existence had been classified, known only to a select few within Earth's government and military. But when the SOS went out, everything changed. Humanity decided it was time to show the galaxy what they were capable of. The decision paid off within hours. The fleet arrived, obliterated the pirates, and saved the horizon. And just like that, Earth's name became known across the stars. Hayes sighed deeply, rubbing his temples. He knew that while the mission had been a success, it also marked the beginning of something much larger. The galaxy wasn't going to ignore Earth anymore. Already, reports were flooding in from intelligence operatives embedded in alien civilizations. Everyone wanted to know more about this mysterious species called humans. Some feared them. Others were curious. A few even saw an opportunity to exploit their sudden rise. Whatever the case, Earth's days of isolation were over. On board the Horizon, Captain Ryan Blake sat in the command chair of his battered ship, staring at the damage reports scrolling across his console. His crew had survived, but the scars of the battle lingered not just on the ship, but on the people. They had faced death head-on, and though they were grateful for the rescue, none of them could forget the sight of those sleek, powerful ships arriving out of nowhere. The way they moved, the precision of their attacks, it was unlike anything Blake had ever seen before. And he was a veteran of countless skirmishes. They came so fast. Lieutenant Sarah Collins said quietly, breaking the silence. She was standing beside him, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "I've never seen anything like it," Blake nodded slowly. None of us have. That wasn't just luck or timing, Sarah. Someone back home must have been planning this for years. Sarah frowned. Planning what? To scare the rest of the galaxy? Maybe, Blake replied, his voice heavy with thought. Or maybe to protect us. Either way, things are going to change. We're not alone anymore. Back on Liberty Prime, Hayes was thinking along similar lines. He walked over to a holographic display showing a map of nearby star systems. Tiny red dots blinked ominously, marking areas where Earth's fleet had been spotted. Each dot represented a report sent back to alien governments, each one fueling speculation about humanity's capabilities. Rumors were spreading faster than anyone could control them. Some claimed Earth's weapons harnessed energy from collapsing stars. Others whispered about artificial intelligences piloting their ships. None of it was true, or at least Hayes hoped it wasn't, but the uncertainty worked in Earth's favor. Fear was a powerful tool. A soft chime interrupted his thoughts. Turning around, he saw Lieutenant Evelyn Ross enter the room. She was dressed in her standard uniform, her blonde hair pulled back into a tight ponytail. Her sharp green eyes scanned the room before settling on Hayes. "You wanted to see me, sir?" she asked, her tone professional but tinged with curiosity. Hayes gestured for her to come closer. "Yes, Lieutenant. I need you to prepare for a meeting with some visitors." Ross raised an eyebrow. "Visitors? From where?" "The Valens," Hayes replied. "They've sent envoys to establish diplomatic relations. Apparently they want to learn more about us." Ross's expression darkened slightly. "Do we trust them?" "I don't think trust is on the table right now," Hayes admitted. "But we can't afford to turn them away either. If we play our cards right, this could be an opportunity to gather intelligence and maybe even plant some seeds of doubt among their leadership." Ross nodded slowly, understanding the strategy. "What do you need me to do?" "For starters, keep them guessing," Hayes said with a faint smile. "Answer their questions, but don't give them anything useful. Let them walk away more confused than when they arrived." "I can handle that," Ross assured him, returning the smile. "Anything else?" "Yes," Hayes said, his tone turning serious. "Keep an eye on them. If they're here to negotiate, fine. But if they're here to probe for weaknesses, I want to know about it immediately." Ross saluted crisply before leaving the room. As she walked down the corridor toward her quarters, she couldn't help but feel uneasy. Diplomacy wasn't her strong suit, and dealing with aliens who could very well be hostile didn't exactly inspire confidence. Still, she reminded herself that this was part of the job. Humanity was stepping onto a bigger stage, and someone had to represent them. Why not her? Meanwhile, aboard the Valen flagship, Ambassador Daniel Carter reviewed his notes for the upcoming meeting. He was a tall man with short gray hair and piercing blue eyes, his face lined with years of experience in high-stakes negotiations. The Valens trusted him to uncover Earth's secrets, and he intended to deliver. But he also knew better than to underestimate his opponents. Humans might be newcomers to the galactic scene, but their actions spoke volumes. Their fleet was formidable, their technology advanced, and their intentions unclear. Carter suspected there was more to their story than met the eye. As the Valen delegation approached Liberty Prime, Carter allowed himself a moment to reflect on the significance of this encounter. For centuries, the Valens had ruled the galaxy, unchallenged. Now, they faced a potential rival, one whose capabilities were still shrouded in mystery. If handled poorly, this meeting could escalate into conflict. But if handled well, it could pave the way for cooperation, or at least mutual understanding. When the Valen shuttle docked with Liberty Prime, Ross was waiting to greet them. She wore a neutral expression, careful not to reveal too much as she extended her hand to Carter. "Welcome aboard," she said politely. "I'm Lieutenant Evelyn Ross, your liaison during your stay." Carter shook her hand firmly, studying her face for any sign of weakness. "Ambassador Daniel Carter," he introduced himself. "Thank you for receiving us." "It's our pleasure," Ross replied smoothly. "If you'll follow me, I'll show you to the conference room." As they walked through the corridors of Liberty Prime, Carter took note of the sleek design and advanced technology surrounding him. Everything about the station screamed efficiency and power. It was clear that humanity had invested heavily in its defense infrastructure. Yet, despite the outward display of strength, Carter sensed caution in Ross's demeanor. She answered his questions politely but avoided providing specifics. Redirecting the conversation whenever possible. In the conference room, Carter wasted no time getting to the point. Your fleet's arrival at the Horizon incident was impressive. He began. We'd like to understand how you achieved such rapid mobilization, Ross smiled faintly. It's all about preparation, she said vaguely. We've learned from history that being ready can make all the difference, Carter pressed further. And your weapons? Their energy signatures are unlike anything we've encountered before. We adapt, Ross replied simply. Every civilization has its strengths. Ours happens to lie in innovation. Frustrated but unwilling to show it, Carter shifted tactics. Tell me, Lieutenant, what does Earth hope to gain from revealing itself now? Surely you realize that your actions have drawn attention from across the galaxy. Ross leaned back slightly, her expression thoughtful. What we hope to gain is peace, she said finally. We're not looking for trouble, but we won't shy away from protecting ourselves or our allies. Carter studied her carefully, searching for cracks in her composure. But Ross remained calm, her words measured and deliberate. It was clear. She had been trained for situations like this. For now, Carter decided to let the matter drop. There would be other opportunities to dig deeper. As the meeting concluded, Ross escorted the Valen delegation back to their shuttle. Once they were gone, she returned to Hayes's office to debrief him. They're curious, she reported, but cautious. Carter seems intelligent, though. He's fishing for information. Hayes nodded approvingly. Good work, Lieutenant. Keep them occupied while we figure out what they're really after. Ross hesitated for a moment before speaking again. Do you think they'll try something? It's possible, Hayes admitted. But if they do, we'll be ready. Unbeknownst to both sides, a shadow loomed in the background. General Marcus Halle, a high-ranking officer within the Valen military, watched the unfolding events with growing frustration. He despised the idea of negotiating with humans, viewing it as a sign of weakness. In his mind, Earth's fleet was a threat that needed to be neutralized before it grew stronger. Convinced that the rumors about their invincibility were exaggerated, Halle began plotting a covert operation to test their defenses. For now, however, the galaxy held its breath. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage and everyone was watching. Closely, whether Earth's fleet would bring peace or chaos remained to be seen. Days turned into weeks, and the galaxy remained abuzz with talk of Earth's sudden emergence. News of the Horizon incident spread like wildfire, carried by traders, spies, and diplomats who crisscrossed the stars. The Valens were not the only ones intrigued by humanity's fleet. Other alien species, some powerful and others less so, began sending envoys to Liberty Prime in hopes of learning more about these mysterious newcomers. Some sought alliances, while others simply wanted reassurance that Earth posed no threat to their territories. Commander Jack Hayes found himself overwhelmed by the influx of visitors, each demanding answers he wasn't prepared to give. Lieutenant Evelyn Ross became a key figure in managing these diplomatic efforts. Her ability to deflect questions and maintain an air of mystery earned her praise from Hayes and his senior staff. But beneath her calm exterior, Ross felt the weight of her responsibilities growing heavier with each passing day. She knew that every word she spoke or didn't speak could shape how the galaxy perceived Earth and perception. In this fragile moment was everything. Meanwhile, aboard the Valen flagship, tension simmered. Ambassador Daniel Carter had returned from his meeting on Liberty Prime with little to show for his efforts. His superiors were growing impatient, demanding results. The Valen leadership wanted answers. How had Earth developed such advanced technology? What were their true intentions? And most importantly, could they be trusted? Carter wasn't the only one feeling the pressure. General Marcus Halle, a brash and ambitious officer within the Valen military, had grown increasingly vocal in his criticism of the diplomatic approach. He believed that negotiation was a waste of time and that Earth's fleet should be tested through force. To Hale, humanity's rapid response to the Horizon incident was proof of their arrogance, not their strength. In his mind, the only way to determine Earth's capabilities was to provoke them. Hale's frustration reached a boiling point during a strategy meeting aboard the flagship. Seated around a large table were the highest-ranking officers of the Valen Empire, including Captain Lila Monroe, who led the patrol fleet that had first encountered Earth's ships. The room buzzed with debate as the leaders discussed how best to handle the situation. "We've wasted enough time talking," Hale snapped, slamming his fist on the table. "These humans think they can waltz into our territory and flex their muscles without consequences. It's time we showed them who really rules the galaxy." Monroe raised an eyebrow, her glowing eyes narrowing slightly. "And what exactly do you propose, General?" she asked coolly. "A direct assault? That would risk a war we're not guaranteed to win." Hale leaned forward, his voice dripping with contempt. "You're afraid of them because they caught us off guard. Once, but let me remind you, Captain, we are Valens. We've conquered entire civilizations. Do you really believe a bunch of primitives from some backwater planet stand a chance against us?" Monroe's expression hardened. "I'm not afraid of them, General. I'm cautious. They've already demonstrated superior firepower and tactics. If we act recklessly, we could lose far more than just a few ships." The argument continued, with voices rising and tempers flaring. In the end, the Council decided to proceed cautiously, maintaining the diplomatic route while secretly authorizing Hale to conduct reconnaissance missions near Earth-controlled space. Though Monroe disagreed with the decision, she held her tongue, knowing that opposing it outright would only fuel Hale's ambitions further. Back on Liberty Prime, Hayes and his team were unaware of the brewing storm. Instead, they focused on strengthening Earth's defenses and preparing for whatever might come next. Intelligence reports indicated increased activity along the borders of Valen space, but nothing concrete enough to warrant alarm. Still, Hayes couldn't shake the feeling that something was coming, a test, perhaps, or even an attack. One evening, as Hayes reviewed updates from his surveillance teams, Lieutenant Sarah Collins entered the command center. She had recently transferred from the Horizon and now served as part of Liberty Prime's tactical division. Her face was pale and she looked shaken. "Commander," she said urgently, "we've detected unusual energy signatures near Sector 12. They match the profile of cloaked vessels." Hayes frowned, standing up immediately. "Cloaked vessels? Are you sure?" Collins nodded. "Yes, sir. Whatever it is, it's moving slowly, almost like it's trying to stay hidden." Hayes exchanged a glance with Ross, who had been listening quietly. "Could it be the Valens?" he asked. "It's possible," Ross replied. "But if it is, they're taking a big risk. Cloaking technology isn't foolproof, especially when used over long distances." Hayes made a quick decision. "Send a reconnaissance team to investigate. Keep it low profile. We don't want to escalate unless we have to." Within hours, a small detachment of Earth's fleet, led by Captain Ryan Blake, set course for Sector 12. Blake's ship, the Tempest, was equipped with advanced sensors capable of detecting even the faintest traces of cloaked vessels. As they approached the designated coordinates, Blake's crew worked tirelessly to pinpoint the source of the energy signatures. "There!" shouted Ensign David Kim, pointing at a cluster of readings on his console. "Multiple contacts, all cloaked." "They're stationary, sir." Blake studied the data carefully. "They're waiting for something," he muttered, "or someone." Before he could issue further orders, alarms blared throughout the ship. The cloaked vessels had activated, revealing themselves as sleek, angular ships bearing the emblem of the Valen Empire. Before Blake could react, the enemy opened fire, unleashing a barrage of missiles designed to disable rather than destroy. "Evasive maneuvers," Blake barked, gripping the arms of his chair as the ship rocked violently. "Return fire!" The Tempest's weapon systems roared to life, sending beams of energy slicing through space. The Valen ships danced around their attacks, their movements erratic but calculated. It was clear they weren't aiming to annihilate the human forces, they were probing, testing their defenses. As the skirmish unfolded, Blake realized what was happening. This wasn't a full-scale assault. It was a reconnaissance mission disguised as an ambush. Whoever was commanding these ships wanted to see how Earth's fleet responded under pressure. After several tense minutes, the Valens disengaged, vanishing into hyperspace as quickly as they had appeared. The Tempest sustained minor damage, but no lives were lost. Blake immediately transmitted a report back to Liberty Prime, detailing the encounter and speculating about its purpose. When Hayes received the news, his jaw tightened. "This changes things," he said grimly. "They're testing us." Ross stood beside him, her arms crossed. "What do we do now?" Hayes hesitated before answering. "We send a message. Reinforce our borders and deploy additional patrols. Let them know we're watching and that we won't tolerate aggression." As Earth's fleet mobilized, whispers of the skirmish reached the ears of other alien species. Some viewed it as evidence of Earth's resolve, while others saw it as proof of their unpredictability. Across the galaxy, opinions shifted, alliances formed, and plans were made. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, and everyone was watching closely. For General Halley, the outcome of the operation only fueled his determination. Though the reconnaissance mission had provided valuable insights into Earth's capabilities, it also confirmed his belief that humanity was vulnerable if caught off guard. He began drafting plans for a larger-scale operation, one that would force Earth to reveal its true strength or lack thereof, unbeknownst to both sides. The seeds of conflict had been planted. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Whether Earth's fleet would bring peace or chaos remained uncertain, but one thing was clear. Humanity's days of obscurity were over. The skirmish in Sector 12 left a mark on both Earth's fleet and the Valen Empire. For Captain Ryan Blake and his crew aboard the Tempest, it was a sobering reminder of how quickly peace could turn into conflict. Though the damage to their ship had been minor, the psychological toll was harder to repair. The Valens had struck without warning, testing Earth's defenses in a way that felt less like an attack and more like a calculated experiment. Blake couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Back on Liberty Prime, Commander Jack Hayes convened an emergency meeting with his senior staff. The room was tense as officers filed in, their expressions grim. Lieutenant Evelyn Ross stood near the front, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. She had already briefed Hayes on the details of the encounter, but now it was time to decide. How to respond? This wasn't random, Hayes began, his voice firm but measured. They wanted to see how we'd react, and they got exactly what they were looking for. Lieutenant Sarah Collins, who had transferred from the Horizon and now served as part of Liberty Prime's tactical division, nodded in agreement. Their movements were too precise. They weren't trying to destroy us, they were probing our weaknesses. Hayes turned to Ross. "What do you think? Was this the work of the Valen leadership or something else?" Ross hesitated before answering. "It's hard to say. Officially, the Valens have been pursuing diplomacy, but there are factions within their military like General Marcus Hale who don't trust us. If I had to guess, this was his doing." Hayes frowned. "So we're dealing with internal divisions." "That complicates things." "It does," Ross admitted. "But it also gives us an opportunity. If we can expose Hale's actions to the Valen leadership, it might create cracks in their unity." Hayes considered her words carefully. "We need proof first. Without evidence, any accusations will look like provocation." Blake spoke up then, his voice steady despite the weight of the situation. "Sir, my team detected traces of cloaked mines during the skirmish. If we send a recovery team to Sector 12, we might be able to retrieve fragments. It could give us the proof we need." Hayes nodded slowly. "Do it, but keep it quiet. We don't want them knowing we're onto them." Meanwhile, aboard the Valen flagship, General Marcus Halley reviewed the data collected during the operation in Sector 12. His expression was a mix of satisfaction and frustration. On one hand, the reconnaissance mission had provided valuable insights into Earth's capabilities. Their ships were fast, their weapons powerful, and their tactics disciplined. On the other hand, the humans had countered every move almost effortlessly, leaving Halley with more questions than answers. Ambassador Daniel Carter entered the briefing room just as Hale was dismissing his subordinates. Carter's face was drawn, his usual confidence replaced by unease. He approached Hale cautiously, aware of the general's volatile temper. "General," Carter began, "I heard about the incident in Sector 12. What exactly happened out there?" Hale smirked, leaning back in his chair. "What happened is that we tested those humans and they passed. For now." Carter's eyes narrowed. "You mean you attacked them without authorization?" "It wasn't an attack," Hale shot back. "It was a demonstration, a reminder that we're still the dominant force in this galaxy." Carter shook his head, his voice tinged with disbelief. "You're playing a dangerous game, Marcus? The Council explicitly ordered us to avoid provoking Earth. If they find out about this, they won't," Hale interrupted sharply. "Not unless someone tells them." Carter studied him carefully, searching for any sign of regret or hesitation. Finding none, he sighed deeply. "This isn't over. Sooner or later, your actions will catch up with you." Hale waved dismissively. "Save your lectures, Ambassador. When the time comes, I'll deal with the consequences." Unbeknownst to either man, Earth's recovery team was already en route to Sector 12. Led by Captain Blake, the mission was kept under strict secrecy. The goal was simple: retrieve fragments of the cloaked mines used in the ambush and analyze them for identifying markers. If successful, it would provide undeniable proof of the Valen's involvement. As the Tempest approached the designated coordinates, Blake's crew worked methodically, scanning the area for residual energy signatures. Ensign David Kim, seated at the sensor station, called out suddenly, "Sir, I've got something." Multiple objects partially buried in debris. Blake leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the monitor. "Bring us in closer, let's take a look." The recovery process was painstaking. Using remote drones, the crew carefully extracted fragments of the mines and transported them back to the Tempest for analysis. By the time they returned to Liberty Prime, the pieces had been thoroughly examined. The results confirmed Blake's suspicions. The mines bore unmistakable traces of Valen technology. Hayes wasted no time acting on the information. He summoned Lieutenant Ross and handed her a datapad containing the evidence. "Take this to the Valen leadership," he instructed. "Make sure they understand the gravity of the situation." Ross nodded, her expression resolute. "Understood, sir." When Ross arrived at the Valen embassy, she requested an immediate audience with Ambassador Carter. To her surprise, he agreed without hesitation, clearly aware that something significant was about to unfold. The two met in a private conference room aboard the embassy ship, their body language tense but professional. "Ambassador," Ross began, placing the datapad on the table between them. "We recovered these fragments from Sector 12. They belong to cloaked mines used in the recent skirmish against our fleet." Carter picked up the datapad, his eyes widening as he scrolled through the data. This changes everything." "It should," Ross said firmly. "Your government claims to want peace, yet one of your own generals is conducting unauthorized attacks against us. How do you intend to address this?" Carter set the datapad down, his mind racing. He knew that exposing Hale's actions would weaken the Valen military's influence, but it was the only way to prevent further escalation. Taking a deep breath, he looked at Ross. "You'll have our full cooperation in bringing him to justice." Thus, back on the Valen flagship, Hale remained oblivious to the storm brewing around him. Confident in his success, he continued planning larger operations, convinced that Earth's fleet was weaker than it appeared. But when Captain Layla Monroe arrived with orders from the Council, his arrogance faltered. "General Hale," Monroe announced, her tone cold and authoritative, "you are hereby relieved of command pending an investigation into your actions in Sector 12. Hale's face flushed with anger. "On whose authority?" "The Council's," Monroe replied, stepping closer. "And mine." "You've endangered not just yourself, but the entire Empire. Consider yourself lucky if this ends with a court-martial." As Hale was escorted away, Monroe couldn't help but feel a pang of satisfaction. Though she had disagreed with his methods, she had never imagined he would go so far as to defy direct orders. Now the Valen Empire faced a choice: continue down a path of aggression or seek genuine peace with Earth. The news of Hale's arrest spread quickly, reaching Earth's leadership within hours. Hayes and his team viewed it as a victory, but they knew better than to celebrate prematurely. The galaxy was still watching, waiting to see what humanity would do next. For now, Earth's fleet remained vigilant, its presence a constant reminder of the power humanity wielded. Diplomatic channels reopened between Earth and the Valens, with both sides eager to prevent another incident. Yet beneath the surface, tensions lingered. Trust was fragile, and the scars of past conflicts ran deep. As the days passed, Hayes reflected on the events that had unfolded. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, and though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: Earth's fleet was here to stay. Whether it brought peace or chaos depended on the choices made not just by Earth, but by all who shared the stars. The arrest of General Marcus Halley sent shockwaves through the Valen Empire. For centuries, the Valens had operated under a unified command structure, their military and political leaders working in harmony to expand their influence across the galaxy. But Hale's actions and his subsequent removal exposed cracks in that unity. The Council, once seen as an unshakable authority, now faced criticism from within its own ranks. Some believed that arresting Halley was a sign of weakness, while others argued it was necessary to maintain peace. Amidst the chaos, one thing was certain: Earth's fleet had changed everything. Ambassador Daniel Carter found himself at the center of the storm. As the Valen's lead negotiator with humanity, he bore the responsibility of repairing the damage caused by Hale's reckless operation. It wasn't an easy task. Trust between the two civilizations was fragile, and every word he spoke carried weight. Still, Carter knew that diplomacy was the only way forward. War would be catastrophic for both sides, and the galaxy was watching closely. If the Valens couldn't prove their sincerity, they risked losing not just Earth as a potential ally, but also the respect of other species. Carter arranged another meeting with Lieutenant Evelyn Ross aboard Liberty Prime. This time, the atmosphere was different. Gone was the tension of their previous encounters. Instead, there was a cautious optimism, a shared understanding that both sides wanted to avoid further conflict. Carter began the conversation with a simple statement: "We made a mistake." He admitted, his voice steady but sincere. General Halley acted without authorization, and his actions do not reflect the will of our people. We are committed to making amends. Ross listened carefully, her expression unreadable. She had been briefed on the situation and knew that Carter's words carried truth. Still, she remained cautious. "Words are important," she replied. "Finally, but actions matter more. What steps are you taking to ensure this doesn't happen again?" Carter nodded, expecting the question. "Halley has been stripped of his rank and is under investigation. Additionally, we're implementing stricter oversight of our military operations near Earth-controlled space. We want transparency not just for your benefit, but for ours as well." Ross considered his response before speaking. "We appreciate the gesture. But let me be clear, any further incidents will be met with force. We don't seek war, but we won't hesitate to defend ourselves." Carter didn't argue. He understood the message loud and clear. Humanity was no longer a passive observer in the galaxy, it was a player, and one that demanded respect. Back on Earth, Commander Jack Hayes reviewed reports from across the fleet. The skirmish in Sector 12 and the subsequent fallout had shifted the balance of power in ways no one could have predicted. Alien species who once dismissed Earth as insignificant now approached humanity with a mix of curiosity and caution. Trade agreements were proposed, alliances formed, and intelligence networks expanded. Humanity's reputation as a formidable force grew stronger with each passing day, but Hayes knew that maintaining this position required constant vigilance. The galaxy was vast, and Earth's fleet, though powerful, was still relatively small compared to empires like the Valens. Every decision mattered, and every move had consequences. He gathered his senior staff for a final strategy meeting. "We've proven ourselves," Hayes began, addressing the room. "But proving ourselves isn't enough. To survive in this galaxy, we need to stay ahead. That means continuing to innovate, to adapt, and to build relationships where we can. Lieutenant Sarah Collins raised a hand. What about the Valens? Do we trust them now? Hayes shook his head. Trust takes time. Right now, we focus on cooperation. If they honor their promises, then maybe, just maybe, we can move toward something stronger. Captain Ryan Blake, seated nearby, chimed in. And if they don't? Hayes's expression hardened. Then we'll deal with it. But for now, we give them the chance to make things right. As weeks turned into months, the relationship between Earth and the Valens slowly improved. Joint patrols were established along their shared borders, and trade routes opened up, allowing for the exchange of goods and knowledge. These efforts weren't without challenges. Misunderstandings arose. Cultural differences clashed, and old prejudices lingered, but progress was undeniable for Captain Lila Moreau. Leading these joint missions was both rewarding and humbling. She had spent years believing the Valens were untouchable, invincible even. But seeing them work alongside humans, learning from them, and adapting to their presence changed her perspective. Humanity wasn't just a new player in the galaxy, it was a catalyst for change, forcing others to rethink their assumptions and strategies. One evening, as Monroe stood on the bridge of her ship, she reflected on how far they'd come. The stars outside the viewport seemed brighter somehow, as if they carried the promise of a better future. Her thoughts were interrupted when Ambassador Carter joined her, stepping quietly onto the bridge. "Beautiful view," Carter said, gazing out at the endless expanse of space. Monroe nodded. "It is. Reminds me why we do what we do." Carter smiled faintly. "You know, I never expected this. When we first encountered Earth's fleet, I thought we were dealing with a threat. Now I see something else entirely." "What's that?" Monroe asked. "A partner?" Carter replied simply. "Not perfect, but willing to try. And sometimes that's all you can ask for." On Liberty Prime, Hayes watched as Earth's fleet prepared for a new mission. Exploration vessels were being dispatched to uncharted regions of space, carrying ambassadors, scientists, and diplomats. Their goal was simple: to learn, to connect, and to grow. Humanity's journey into the stars was just beginning, and Hayes felt a sense of pride knowing he had played a part in shaping it. Lieutenant Evelyn Ross approached him, her usual calm demeanor tinged with excitement. "Sir, the Horizon is ready for departure. They're heading to a system we've never explored before." Hayes nodded, a small smile forming on his lips. "Good, let's see what's out there." As the Horizon launched into hyperspace, Hayes turned back to the observation deck windows. The galaxy stretched endlessly before him, full of possibilities and dangers alike. Humanity had stepped onto the galactic stage, and though the road ahead was uncertain, one thing was clear: Earth's fleet was here to stay. Whether it brought peace or chaos depended on the choices made not just by Earth, but by all who shared the stars, and so the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. For now there was hope, a fragile, flickering light in the vast darkness of space, but hope was enough. It always had been.